without a shadow of a doubt that you're created on purpose for a purpose. Mindset and money revolution. You have to have a mindset revolution to experience a money revolution. That's when you experience a true wealth revolution.
My name is Chad Free. Welcome to the Wealth Revolution Podcast.
Welcome back to the Wealth Revolution Podcast. I am so glad to be here. My name is Chad Free, and I am a wealth strategist, and I believe that true wealth is built from the inside out. True wealth is an abundance of anything that you value, and that involves purpose and potential and being present and profitable, not just on the outside, but on the inside, and ultimately having peace. And the only way to do that is to align yourself with who God created you to be. And that's what I believe. That's what my mission is. And today I have an amazing guest. I have an amazing guest that I'm glad to have on here, Mr. Nehemiah Fernandez. This guy is so bold. I'm just calling it like it is, man. I saw you doing a TikTok reel and just your sincerity. Is that not right, Caden? Look, hey, we mess up. We raw and real on this. Don't cut this part out, all right? Because I want people to see. I don't know the stuff. TikTok reel, TikTok videos, Instagram, Snapface.
Close enough.
Yeah, close enough. But while we're rolling, all right, my dad, I get it from my dad. You know what my dad did one time? Like, he just got a smartphone, wasn't too long ago. Maybe 2 years ago. He literally had the latest flip phone. And my kids were like, yeah, Snapchat. He heard Snapchat. He said, hey, boys. He opened that flip phone up and he slid the flip phone. He said, you get that slingshot? So crazy, man. We you know, look, we're from South Carolina. That's how we roll. We raw and real here, but I'm glad to have Nehemiah on here. I call him Nemo. I'm going to call him Nemo for the rest of the time. All right. Because that's what I say. Nemo.
Yes, sir.
What's up, man?
Glad to be here.
I'm glad you are here. You just came back from vacation, didn't you?
Yes, sir. In Boston.
Boston, yeah. Good times?
Absolutely. Completely different weather, though. It was very cold up there, windy. And then we come down here to South Carolina. It's sun shines out. And it's a good time.
I know. But you probably got prepped with that, though, before you left, because we'd have 30s, you know, one day. And then by the end of the week, we're, you know, hitting on 85 degrees or something like that.
Yeah, that's what I was telling the folks up there in Boston. The weather down here is like super bipolar. One day it'll be very sunny. The next day we got, you know, it's a thunderstorm.
Yeah, that's right. It's crazy. But it is what it is. So, guys, this is I'm really excited to dive deep into Nemo because his story, his boldness, his walk is just amazing. And he don't have to talk much. You can just see it when he comes around, and he knows who the main character is in his life. And, you know, it's just awesome at that age to have that. So, you know, this is one of the next generation revolution editions of the Wealth Revolution Podcast. So, Nemo, let's talk about who Nemo is. Who is Nemo? What does Nemo like to do? What does he do? Let's talk about that.
So first and foremost, I got the nickname Nemo in middle school. I started playing football and my coach couldn't really pronounce my name. So he had to figure out something to call me, and Nemo just so happened to be close enough to Nehemiah somehow. Yeah. And so that's where it originated. And then that was in 8th grade. And then since then, it's just stuck around, and that's what people call me, Nemo. Every now and then people will call me Nehemiah's, but it gets kind of like weird hearing Nehemiah's because I don't hear it often. Yeah. And I have 7 siblings, so it's 8 including me. Okay. And we grew up in Houston, Texas. Stayed there for about half of my life, about 7 years, and then moved down to South Carolina. We've been here since. And high school football, I go to Lawrence High School.
Okay, great coach at Lawrence High School. Yes, sir. I happen to know that guy. Shout out, Coach Porter. Coach Porter. Hope you see this. Yeah, great coach. So, what position you play?
Running back. Yep. I would consider myself an athlete. because I have played multiple positions over the years. I've played linebacker, quarterback, running back. I mean, many positions. I've played like kind of like nickel,
Yep.
which is like a corner / outside linebacker.
Yep. Good deal. Good deal. So you've been playing for how long?
4 years now.
Oh, for real?
4 years, yeah. I played my 8th grade year, and then 5 years, 4 or 5 years
Watching you play, and I've seen a few of your games. I would have thought that you've been playing since like 6 years old.
since like rec league.
Yeah, for sure. So you came out here to South Carolina. What brought you to South Carolina from Texas?
Man, well, here's where things start to get a little deep.
Okay, well let's get deep. We like to get deep here.
So when I was 4 years old, my mom and my dad, they ended up getting a divorce, and I was very young, so I didn't know what was going on. I was just going where my mom went.
Yep.
And we were in Texas for a while after they got divorced, for about a year maybe. And then we had to figure out what to do. We were staying with a few of my mom's friends, and we had to leave at some point, right? You can't stay there forever.
Sure.
And so my grandma, she's lived here in South Carolina for maybe 15 years now.
Okay.
And so we just so happened to move down to South Carolina into a small town called Gray Court.
Yep.
Yeah.
Know where that's at.
And then from Gray Court, we moved to Fountain Inn, and then from Fountain Inn to Walhalla, from Walhalla to Seneca to Spartanburg, and then from Spartanburg back to Gray Court, and then Fountain Inn, Gray Court, Fountain Inn, Gray Court. So,
wow.
Yeah, a lot of moving around.
I gotcha. Well, so it started getting deep then. I guess there was, I don't want to assume, but some trials and tribulations that were maybe possibly causing the move because you had to figure it out. You said something, I do a mindset and morning call every Tuesday morning with a bunch of realtors, but also on that same platform, we have what they call Figure It Out Friday, where somebody has gone through something in their life to where they just had to figure it out. And ultimately they came out on the other side and they learned from that story. They learned from their past. You have to go through pain sometimes to develop perseverance and to continue to grow into who you were going to be, right? And we say our past can help other people's futures a lot of times. So you had to figure things out, and you probably had to figure those out at each move. There was something going on, right? So how old were you did you say that already? How old were you when you got here and began all of those moves within South Carolina?
I want to say I was around like 5 or 6 years old when we arrived in South Carolina.
Yep.
And then, we got here and things were good for a while. My grandma, she was helping us out. But then it got to a point where, like I said, we can't be there forever. So
right,
you have to step out into the real world and then start encountering these trials because we know that these trials are promised in our life, right?
Yep.
Nobody has a life that's full of rainbows and flowers, right? You're going to have problems here and there. And so I was around that age when trials started to occur in not just my life, but my family. At this point, though, it was just me, my 3 brothers, my 2 older ones and my younger one, and then my mom. So it was 5 of us. This was before the other 4 were born.
Okay.
And so around this time, things weren't terrible, right? It kind of seemed to me as if times just got worse over the years. But what a lot of people don't know about me, and I don't speak about it much, but I do think that it's necessary in this podcast to talk about it because there may be somebody going through this as well, whether it's financially, emotionally, or even spiritually.
Yep.
But we went through a lot of trials as a family. And when I say that, what I mean by that is there was times where we didn't have a place to stay. It was just all 5 of us, my mom and my brothers. And there was times where, we had to stay in the car and somehow find a way. There was plenty of times where, no electricity, no water. These were very dark times for us, but ultimately I felt a bond some type of connection between all of us. Because when the Lord blessed us with different things later on in life, we showed uh, gratitude towards those things because we understood that we didn't have those before. And so it was really great to, now that I look back at it, it's really great to understand how far I've come and understanding that those times were necessary to build me up to like where I am now in life.
Yes, 100%. So let me ask you about that bond. You said you created a bond because ultimately that's all you had, right? I mean, not too many people go through that. And when that's all you have, I can see where that bond truly, truly grows with your mom and your siblings. And I can only imagine, man. I can only imagine that. Like, what was, I don't know how to word it. What was that like? Like, was faith involved at that point in time? You know what I mean? Or was there something else? And I don't want to rush your story by no means because it's so powerful. But what kept y'all going? What kept you guys going when you're in a car sleeping or when you are at your home and there's no electricity? What keeps you going? What kept you going? What kept your mom going? You know what I mean?
Yes, sir. I would say first and foremost, the Lord. Somehow he made a way for us when we thought there was no way. And then I would say my mom. It's kind of hard being a mother and, a father to 5 children or 4 children at the time. But she would make a way for us, even when there was no way. And that's what, shout out to my mother. I think that during those trials, we learned a lot of things like who's really looking out for us. We learned how to like lean upon each other. We also learned, it's really hard to explain because it was just so many different emotions during that time. I was young, and so I wasn't really introduced to the faith around that time. I would say that when we were in Texas, when I was like 4 years old, my father and my mom, we would go to church and stuff. But again, I'm like 4 years old. I don't really comprehend all this stuff. And so now I'm like 5 and 6 years old and going through these trials, and I don't really understand anything. I don't know what's going on. I'm just, going where my mom goes. Yeah. And where my brothers go. And so, I wasn't really introduced to the faith until probably my 9th grade year when we went to an FCA camp, and they gave us the opportunity to surrender our lives to Christ. And I did take that leap of faith. But, like I told you earlier, before I gave my life to Christ, there was no conviction. So after I gave my life to Christ, FCA, that's when I started to understand, just how imperfect I am as a human being. But I also had to understand that I don't have to be perfect.
Yes, that's correct. That's huge. And I want to stop right there. So here's what I'm hearing you say, and it's truth. When you first become a believer, we're like babies, right? We're born again. And so we haven't grown in our relationship with Christ yet. And those are very important times where we need accountability. We need relationships. We need to be feeding our spirit with his word. And I jumped in there because that was my life. I was a Christian, but it took some trials and some tribulations for my heart to break, for my eyes to be open, truly to understand what it meant to depend on him. You know what I mean? And so a lot of times it requires pain to understand his promises, right?
Right.
So, man, so FCA, that's when you accepted Christ and you're growing in your walk with him, and the conviction, you probably are just being more made aware of what's right, what's wrong, and even your shortcomings,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. So after I gave my life to Christ in FCA, I started to feel different kind of convictions in my life, in different areas. The stuff that I was saying, the music I started to listen to, even the people that I was hanging around, because I am really heavy on the saying that you are who you hang around. And so my ninth grade year, I started to realize just how imperfect we are as humans, and not just me, but like everyone around me. And it's really hard to not judge people. But I also understood that if I'm trying to live a life according to God, then I can't be with those same people that are living a life that's opposite. And so I had to separate myself. But again, it wasn't just because I was trying to like be different from everybody. It was just the conviction that the Lord put on my heart. He called me to be something, and I can't be distracted by the people around me. You know what I'm saying?
100%. And, that is such a valuable lesson to have learned at a young age, because we can consider ourselves good people. We can consider ourselves to be strong, but I think that is one of the biggest influences of somebody falling away. It's not black and white. There's a song, it's not black and white. It's a slow fade that turns to gray, right? And I think that if you compromise just a little bit, then you get comfortable with that, with what you compromise. And then you can compromise more and compromise more. And every time you're compromising, that conviction, it's a battle with compromise and conviction. And the more you allow the compromising to take place, the less the conviction will happen.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that is super, super important. Another thing that I would say that I taught my boys when they were very young, I may have mentioned this, but I would get up on like a chair. And we know that we don't want to be ugly. We want to show people, be friendly to them and all of that. But we have to be careful,
Right.
because we may want to pull them up on a chair. And this is when my kids were small. And it was hard for me to pull them up on a chair. But it was easier. I said, now pull me down. They pulled me right down. They just jerked me right down, right?
Right.
It's easier to do that. So we have to protect that. And I think that's what the Bible says about being equally yoked.
Right.
So it's very important. That is a huge lesson that you learned at a young age. And a lot of people need to hear that. Quit trying to fit in when you're called to stand out. You are you. You said that he called you to be somebody. You're one of one. You're not in a race with anybody. I'm getting on a tangent because this is the place to do it. Don't compare yourself to anybody else. There's nobody better than you. They may be further along than you, but they're not better than you. Don't compare your chapter 2 to somebody else's chapter 10. You cannot do that. You're in a race by yourself, and your responsibility is to be the very best that you can be, and that is who God called you to be. And you don't have to look at the destination. It is a day-to-day walk and direction in just saying, hey, I want to be 1% better today than I was yesterday.
Absolutely.
So, man, that right there, we could end right there. And I think that's huge. That is absolutely huge. Don't compare yourself to other people, and quit trying to fit in. Quit trying to fake it till you make it. That's a fancy little saying, but you be you. You be your authentic self. So, okay, I'm done. All right.
Well,
keep on going. Let's keep going.
Just to piggyback off what you said,
Do it.
I think we all have a story of our own. And I look at it as if you were a book and I was a book, and you have to trust the author of the story, the book, I should say. And so, like you said, don't compare yourself to somebody who's on chapter 2 and another person that's on chapter 5, chapter 10, whatever it may be. I think that you should trust in the author of the book, whether that's going through trials, whether that's going through good, bad times, sad times, whatever it may be. You have to trust that when you're reading throughout this entire book, in the end, you know that the author has already written it, planned out.
Yes, exactly right. So I don't want to skip forward. Okay. But I want to ask you this question. We're not as far along as we need to be, but you're probably further along than you used to be, right?
Correct.
And that's something to celebrate. But when you go through trials and tribulations now, because we all do, what are you trying? Are you more conscious? Like, where does your attention go? How do I fix it? Or is it, what are you trying to teach me here?
Yep.
What does that look like?
So I now live with the mindset of let his will be done and not mine. And I really think that it's necessary that we go through these things, right? And it's not crazy that you have it highlighted here, because I have it highlighted here too. But in Romans chapter 5, it says we can rejoice too when we run into problems and trials, for we know that they help us develop endurance. And endurance develops strength of character, and character appointment. For we know how dearly God loves us, because he has given us the Holy Spirit to fill our hearts with his love. That is what I look at every time when I am going through hard times. I understand that it's for a reason. You know, God isn't just letting me go through these sufferings because he wants me to. No, on the other side, it's building me up for something. It's making me stronger for something else.
That's exactly right. That's right. You know, I guess I was reading that and it really spoke to me. Another verse that I read the word daily. I didn't always do that, man. I'm just going to be honest with you. I'll share that. I always felt like I had to check it off on a box.
Yep. So
my approach was wrong. If I read 3 verses or a paragraph in the Bible, and it's not a race. I just truly want to, what am I supposed to get out of this? Right? That's what I do now. It's not, okay, let me get my regiment done. That's religion.
Right.
You know what I mean? That kind of goes back to religion. I got to do this. I got to do that. I get to spend time with God and truly read his word. But where I was going with that, I'm not a Bible scholar, but there's a few verses, like that's a staple verse for you. Another one along those same lines is Romans 8:28. All things work together for the good. It don't say all the good things.
Right.
It don't say most everything. It says all things. The good, the bad, the ugly. There is something being taught right there that'll make you better.
Right.
Right? And you've got to be open to it and go back to that verse, go back to his word, and what are you trying to teach me here, and how can I grow from here?
Right.
You can't grow on top of a mountaintop.
Yep. See, the end of that verse says, for those who love God and are called according to his purpose. And, you know, you go through all these things in life, and see, I'm going to restate that Bible verse, Romans 8:28, because it's actually one of my favorites as well. And also Romans 8:18.
Okay.
And Romans 8:28 says that we know that all things work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose. And you said that, you know, these things, he's trying to teach us something in the times that we are going through, whether it be hard times or good times, right? But a lot of the people don't realize it because they're not rooted with Christ. You know what I'm saying? Like people don't understand that, because it said in the end of the verse, to those who love God and who are called according to his purpose. If you're not aligned with him, then how are you going to understand what he's trying to do in your life?
Yeah, that's strong. There's some depth there. We were talking about that before we got started, the depth of it. Kind of use faith at surface level, but faith has a lot of depth. Man. And look, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Good.
You went through some crazy times, you and your family. But would you be Nemo? Would you be Nehemiah had you not gone through that? Those times have brought you to where you are today.
Yep, absolutely.
So, you know, we didn't cue this up, but I doubt you would trade those times.
Nope.
I mean, those were hard. And a lot of people that are not rooted in that just sees that story outside of the frame would say, man, you telling me if I had to do it over again, you'd go through it again?
Yep.
Probably so.
I wouldn't trade it for anything because I would tell everybody that everything happens for a reason. And I went through all of those things just so I can be at the point in my life where I am now. And I don't look 5 years ahead to where I'll be then. I focus on the current. See, I used to live by the phrase of don't live in the moment, right? People used to say that to me, but then I got a different perspective of it when I gave my life to Christ. And I say now, do live in the moment. Appreciate what you have now. Appreciate the trials that come in your life now because it's all for something greater in the end.
That's exactly right. Dude, we're so aligned more than you know. It's just you're here in your life. I was here in my life, but the same lessons is what I learned. You've heard me share this. Audiences have heard me share this. I'd throw the football with the kids and be thinking about the deal closing tomorrow or, where am I going to be at in 2 years and 5 years? And I'm living way out here. And Nemo, I'm missing the blessings right here in front of me. Man, that's a wealth revolution.
Right. I think people focus too much on the future and then they don't enjoy what they have now. And it all starts by you even being alive because the saying tomorrow is not promised. I don't think people really understand that because anything could happen to you. We look around in our lives to people that die, whether it's our family, friends, and that happened. It's necessary. Death is inevitable, right? But we have to realize that could also be us. Tomorrow is not promised. Today could be our last day. And then we're too busy worried about what we're going to do in the future, or we're worried about things that are yet to come when tomorrow is not even promised.
How old are you, Nemo?
I'm 16.
16! Did I know that? I don't think I knew that.
Yes, sir.
16.
Yes, sir.
I'm blown away right now. You are teaching lessons to a lot of people. This is not just next generation. This is every generation.
All right.
And I'm literally just in awe.
Yeah. It's important. It's important though that I want everyone to know that it don't matter how much wisdom I have, what I say, this isn't about me at all. I just see myself as a vessel for the Lord. And everything that is being said is not my words, but it's rather his through me. And so, I could be 16, 24, 100 years old. It's never about me. It's about his glory, and what I go through is not about me. It could lift up another person.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So as we wrap up, because I got some more to say.
Right.
But I don't want to say it now and it not be the end. As we wrap up, what would you tell the audience, your peers, people that you look up to, anybody that's listening? What's your words or what message do you want to tell them?
I would say, man, stop being so stubborn. Give it a shot. You know what I'm saying? Allow God to do works in your life. You can seek God and he'll seek you, or you can turn away from him and he'll still be there for you, but you're not getting anywhere near him because it's your decision to turn away from him. So I would say to the people who are watching to allow God to work in your life. Immediately things aren't going to get better, but the more that you pray, the more that you seek him, the more that you read your word, you will start to understand just how great he is.
So, man, 16 years old. Yeah, I'm still hung up on that. I know we're not going to look out in the future. Okay. But now I'm going to brag on you. So you just going to have to receive it.
Yes, sir.
You just got to sit there and take it, because guess what? I got the microphone now, okay? And I won't let you speak, all right? Let me tell you something. No matter what, God has a plan and a purpose for Nemo. So whatever he leads him to do in the future, whatever doors open up for you, you are already having a huge impact. Okay? So I preface that to say, we don't stand on the football as your identity.
Right.
But here comes the bragging. This guy is very calm, cool, and collect. But dude's stupid crazy on the football field. He is talented like crazy. You will hear about him. You're going to hear his name on the news. You already have heard his name on the news. Maybe you just wasn't paying attention to it. But football or no football, I know you're going to make an impact. But I had to say, I want you to see that. Because look, you are a stud at football. You are an athlete like crazy. And 16 years old. That's just nuts. But he didn't give that impression. He's mild, he's humble, and he's not the main character of his story. God is. I wanted you to catch that. You can be confident without being cocky. If anybody has a ticket, I would hand it to you. You could be cocky according to society.
Right.
Look at him. Look at him. How he's at. Right. He is a phenom of an athlete. So I think that's important for me to make a big deal about. He realizes who has given him that gift. And now he's taken that and he's given that back as a gift back to God to use for his glory. And that's why God's going to continue to bless you. And that's why on TikTok, reels, clips, whatever you call it,
Yeah.
you're getting, how many views have you, not that you do it for views,
Yep.
but how many views have you gotten on, like, that's just crazy. I don't want to say it because it'll be way off, but what was it?
With the 2-3 videos that I've put out there, I want to say maybe over 90,000.
Over 90,000. And he literally is just sharing his testimony. What is your handle on TikTok?
On TikTok, it is I Go by Nemo.
That's easy to go. I Go by Nemo. And Instagram?
It's Nehemiah_D1.
Okay. All right. Guys, I want you to, number one, listen to understand this message. I want you to have some introspection in your own life about where you're at. And maybe you're going through a trial or tribulation. And maybe you're just using faith at the surface that you've always had, that, just to go into church, maybe just, the mom and dad faith that you've kind of depended on. God wants you to grow in your relationship with him. And I want you to ask yourself, are you asking, what am I trying to learn here? How can I grow from this? Because it's necessary. Again, Proverbs 19:21, man makes many plans, but God's purpose will prevail. So you can continue to try to figure this thing out called life on your own, unknowingly being all up against what God created you for, or you can open up and ask God, how can he use you to be a vessel? And so, man, I'm telling you, I loved this podcast, man. I loved it. I appreciate you coming and sharing your heart. I know that was tough. Sharing some of those struggles, because it probably took you back to that place. But also it's a time to celebrate where you've come from.
Yes, sir.
You might not be where you want to be, but thank God you're not where you used to be.
Amen.
Right? So I hope everybody enjoyed this podcast. Let that sink in. If you know somebody struggling that you think would really get something out of this podcast, send it to them. Share it. Subscribe to our channel. We try to bring you value like this. We ain't better than nobody. We mess up every single day. But we just trying to do our best and be who God created us to be, because you are created on purpose for a purpose. Thank you, and God bless you.